Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. How many of you out there really enjoy going out for a nice long walk, a jog, perhaps even a bike ride? Or if you're a little bit more exploratory, perhaps you like to go on long hikes into nature. From time to time, though, as you do this, you find that your muscles seem to get a little sore as you get older, and it seems to linger a lot longer than it used to. But the fact of the matter is perhaps you're just not breathing appropriately so that your muscles can get more oxygen as the demand is met by such activities. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a guest with the most advanced and versatile natural breathing development program in the world. Help thousands of people from around the world take control of their health and life through what is known as optimal breathing. He is the founder of My Oxygen Machine as well as the website breathing.com. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Michael Grant. Michael, thank you for being on the program today.
Enjoyed being here. And by the way, we've changed My Oxygen Machine to turbooxygen.com. It just got launched.
Well, I like that. Turbo Oxygen, huh? So tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. That's very effective. So I think the big question is with everyone is age 80 the new 50, or is age 50 the old 80?
Seems reasonable to me. What had you got you excited and specializing in things such as breathing?
Well, back when I was 11, I sang a cappella for the school, and I was the only one chosen. And I had a lot of accidents. A lot of physical abuse, and I was beaten beyond the point where I could scream several times, and I lost my ability to sing. So in my 30s, I decided I wanted to get my singing voice back. And I took a couple of singing lessons, and the singing teacher said, "My God, you are really locked up. You need to go do this therapy." So, okay, fine. So I did the therapy. Saying she was doing it too. It's called Reichian therapy, Wilhelm Reich, not Reiki, but Reichian. And I did it for that and a singing lesson for 156 consecutive sessions. 156 weeks. I still couldn't sing.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was a lot of terror inside me. A lot of, the organism holds emotions. And I did a real good job. And so it was one teacher after another, and I couldn't get back into singing. I couldn't stay present with the energy. It would just overwhelm me. So along about 20 years later, I came across a couple of people who were teaching breathing. And my vibrato started to come back. Oh my God, this is really cool. And I ended up buying breathing.com in 1997. And I began to study breathing big time. I began to see that there were correlations that a couple of key teachers were trying to show people. One was Carl Stow, was called Dr. Breath, and it was Carola Speeds. Carola was working up until 3 months before she died at age 99. So I began to, learn from these people that there's a lot of misinformation around breathing, and I joined a group in Walnut Creek called the Health Medicine Forum. And I would basically they had a health professional would choose 7 more health professionals, and there would be one patient. They would interview this patient in front of a audience. I was in the audience, called the Health Medicine Forum. And what I saw was that you had 7 practitioners interviewing this one patient, and over a period of 1 hour, I waited until the very end, and nobody asked the patient anything about their breathing. I thought that was strange. So I waited until the end, and I mentioned it, and in silence. Okay, so next week, new patient, new set of practitioners, same deal. 1 hour, no mentioning breathing. Well, this went on for 7 times. Finally, And I would come up at the end and say, nobody said anything about breathing. I waited until the very end, and nothing. So finally, the seventh session, Len Saputo came up to me. He's the MD that was running it, and he says, I think you're finally getting through to me. And he wanted to learn. You get it?
Mm-hmm.
He was very open. His wife had been saved. He was a traditional medical doctor, but his wife had been saved by holistic alternative people. So, he was very open to learning, but it still took him 7 times. So at that point, it became very clear to me that the alternative holistic medical world didn't know much about breathing. They knew about sick breathing. They knew about asthma and COPD and emphysema, but they didn't understand what healthy breathing was, how to develop it, how to maintain it, what to look for as it's improving. And so that became my Chautauqua, my spiritual path. And then I was working on a client, and he said, you need a website. So I basically said, what's a website? 1997. And he got me breathing.com. And that gave me my focus. At that point, I could see that there was a huge need out there for educating breathing. And so it became my goal was to awaken the breathing consciousness of the world. And I did that. I wrote a book about that, ABCs of Breathing. And after about 40 revisions, it occurred to me that you can't learn breathing by reading about it. You have to do something. There's a physical internal sense of what it feels like when it's right. And sadly, there's a lot of people that don't have a clue about that and that are teaching other people, well, here's what you do. Here's what you do. And hey, if you want to sell something to somebody, you find out what they know, then you can sell them anything. So there's a lot of very bad information out there around breathing, and there's some good stuff too, But what they need to do is take it all the way to breathing development, not just a breathing exercise that makes you a little more calm. That's a good thing, or can energize you. That's a good thing, okay? But how do you develop breathing from the inside out that feels right, where your breathing volume gets bigger? For example, the Framingham study proved over 5,000 patients in 30 years that breathing volume is the primary marker for how long you're going to live. They could anticipate 20 years ahead of time when someone was going to die because their breathing volume.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I found it very interesting. So, and yet, if you try to read the Framingham study, it's one of those long, convoluted things where, but one of my colleagues got me the copy of an interview of the two heads of the Framingham study that was printed in Science magazine about 30 years ago. And it made it very simple in lay terms that breathing volume is the primary marker for longevity. It was very simple. I have a copy of that. I give it to people. So that's how I got into it. And along about that time, I was working on people and had the website, and I was writing and doing newsletters and sending out newsletters. And I had this one little part of the newsletter that says the Unclear on the Concept Award. And I would find a clinical study. And the clinical study clearly did not include breathing and its potential for distorting everything. So I said, this is overlooked. They're overlooking breathing. And therefore, to me, the study was a sham. And so I sent around about 8 million emails over a period of 15 years, I guess it was. And kept reworking the book, and finally it got to the point where, okay, we need to home in on the videos that guide people into breathing. And that took me another, 5, 6, 7 years. And then along that time, I was still singing, getting a little better, enjoying it more, and I moved to up near Asheville, North Carolina, and I joined a Christian church. I mean, I'm kind of a Taoist Christian, but this was a rock and roll church, and I joined the choir, and I was able to in the choir let it out, just let out my sound, let out my voice, and actually was able to cry and feel okay while I was singing. You know, probably try crying and singing at the same time. It's a joy.
I'm sure it is.
It's very healing. You know, so that was getting through that really. And then, of course, karaoke came along, and karaoke is just an absolute boon. You know, and it's free with YouTube. You know, so that's pretty much it. And it's been working with people, learning more and more and more about you know, what they need to know around breathing. For instance, I'm working right now with a 23-year-old autistic young man, and he was taught some bad breathing. He already had bad breathing. Taught worse, and was very confused. He found me, and so I gave him a couple of my key exercises, and he started homing in on them. He says, "This is helping." I said, "Well, stay with it." You know, he says, "Yes, it's helping." I says, "How are you feeling?" He says, "I'm feeling more calm, more relaxed." Okay, good. All right, just stay with those. Then we started working on his nutrition. He's getting bad advice around there. And just took a man off of a CPAP. He wanted to get off his CPAP. Been on it for 10 years. And so we trained him. When the issue was with apnea, sleep apnea, is you're not breathing right. Okay, and obesity is one reason, but there's a lot of thin people that have apnea that have a CPAP. So, what do we do? You develop the breathing from the inside out. Whether they're heavy, whether they're light, doesn't matter. You develop the breathing, but you make it stronger from the inside out. It's like the difference between PVC or silly putty. You have to make your internal airways stronger, so that they don't collapse all the way up into the jaw. You got to get the tongue out of the way. There's techniques around that. I used to be a partner with a spasmodic dysphonia clinic, which is a very, very traumatic experience when you lose your voice at it's adult onset, most of it. So I learned a lot about horrible voicing that really is lacking breathing foundation. So we homed in on breathing foundation big time. I had about an 80% success rate. So it's been one enlightening experience after the other. During that 15-year period, I created breathing tests on the website. How good is your breathing? Do you need to spend $2,000 for an MRI or no? We created there's about 4 skills in breathing, and that I discovered. And if you go to the breathing.com website, you take the breathing test, you can see how good your breathing skills correlate with diagnosed illnesses. The better the score, the fewer the diagnosed illnesses. The worse the score, the more the diagnosed illnesses. We have 85,000 people that have taken those tests.
It's pretty amazing, too, because I'm on your website now, which is breathing.com, as you just talked about there. And, obviously there's a big correlation between the way a person breathes and the way that they can either become sick or they can become better. So, what's going on in the breathing, especially here in the West, that's causing this? Is it breathing too shallow, not breathing enough? I mean, what is it? What is the real basics to this?
Exactly. It's shallow breathing. It's distorted breathing. It's chest breathing. It's not breathing. And then the issue really is, okay, how do you look at it? You know, a lot of people say, well, breathe in your belly. Hey, your belly is an arc. Your lungs are a circle. Your diaphragm is a circle. Your rib cage is essentially a circle. And so if you breathe into the arc, you're only getting about 70% of your breathing capabilities. You need to breathe into a circle. And that requires your side breath, your back breath, your belly breath, your chest breath. It requires all of it at the same time. So we have one of our exercises called a squeeze and breathe. And you stick your thumbs in your kidneys and wrap your fingers around towards your belly button, and you squeeze your fingers and thumbs together, and then you breathe in. Right? You should feel your thumbs move a lot, and most people don't move at all. And the thumbs moving is an indicator of your back breath. Now, if you wanted to be a opera singer, you'd have to develop a back breath. You know? But most people can't because it's their back muscles that are holding them up. And to try to breathe through that is tricky business. So, but you can do it. You just have to want to do it and know that it's a good thing to do, and we show you how to do that with our breathing kit.
Now, it's really amazing, too, because there's also a lot of religious philosophy around the world that would talk about breathing, but it seems that with each and every one of them, you know, this is something we all do. You breathe in and out, you know, day above ground is a good day, but it could be a lot better, correct?
Absolutely. You know, there's a breathing component in practically every religion, every spiritual discipline, you know, but none of them focus on breathing development. And that's what I did. I studied a lot of them, and I pulled out the elements of, okay, what's good for breathing? Forget about whether it's a guru or some kind of religion or, you know, spiritual path, whatever. You know, there's good factors in all of them, good aspects of all of them, but it wasn't about healthy breathing. And it's really easy to get stuck in your paradigm if you're just doing one breathing exercise or two. It's real easy to get stuck. You know, one of my mantras is variety is the spice of life, okay? So breath is life, so variety of breathing.
Huh. Pretty, you know, it's really funny when you think about a lot of this in the simplicity, but, you know, the fact is learning something to do correctly, you'll discover the benefit of it, it seems almost immediately. Now, here's one example of what I was talking about. For instance, you hear about bellows breathing. Is this a good thing to do?
Yeah, it is. In other words, it gets you down to the belly. You know, so bellows breathing is helpful. It depends on who's interpreting it and how they're doing it, how often you do it. You see, you do one exercise all the time. You know Popeye and his big forearms?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what happens if you just do one breathing exercise all the time? What's going to happen to your breathing? It's going to get bigger in one way. It's going to get restricted. So the bellows breathing is more about energy. And if, for instance, if you're an asthmatic, that's the last thing you want to do, bellows breathing, because more than likely your breathing pattern is out of balance, and you're going to slip up into the chest breath, and you're going to overwhelm yourself.
Because I know as I was beginning the show here, one of the things that I was talking about was exercise, whether you walk or run or you go to the gym. And a lot of people will find that they feel a lot of muscle fatigue, and you talk about why this happens, and most of it is because the body's muscles aren't getting enough oxygen into them during this particular time that they're exercising. And why is that? I mean, how are they breathing that's different from the way they should be so they don't have those experiences?
It's the same thing as, it's distorted or shallow. And they're breathing. For instance, if you have a lung volume the size of a baseball, right? You're not going to be able to get the energy you want or need. If you have the lung volume the size of a basketball, things are going to go a lot better. So a lot of it's key. A lot of the issue really is around breathing volume. Now we're focused a lot on conditioning, and conditioning is great. It's very important. Okay, But would you rather have a lawnmower-sized engine in great shape or a 12-cylinder Ferrari engine in great shape?
Correct. Mm-hmm. I can see where that would be true, especially. For instance, let's talk about the best rate for inhaling and exhaling within a minute and why that is.
Okay. The best way for inhaling and exhaling, you have to do the exercise I just described to get a bit of a sense of that. And then what happens is it's going to change. But the point is creating a very strong foundation. You need a foundation for when you breathe because you can excitement or fatigue or fast action can change the breathing pattern. And so there's no way you're going to describe in words how to breathe on all levels. It's not going to happen. So but if you develop the foundation, which is what the breathing kit is all about, and then being able to use the breathing with the foundation in all the different ways that we have in the variety of life, all right? Then you're going to not get in trouble. You're going to stay out of trouble. And I've actually told a fellow, I said, look, I can train you to walk calmly through the gates of hell. He said, well, that wasn't exactly on my agenda. But, the key is that there's a way to teach a person breathing who's dying. It's called cross-training. It comes from Tibet. And you can actually get into a breathing rhythm, and they can just pass away quietly and peacefully and without fear. So there is no one thing. And that's a lot of the problem because people are looking for that one thing. And so they find this teacher, and he gives them one thing, and they feel better, and they think that's it. That's just the tip of a very big iceberg.
So it's obviously something that as you begin to learn to do it, it begins to dawn on you that there is a lot more to it than just, as you were saying, one way. So this takes time to develop these skills, doesn't it?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we have, with the kid, we focus on a couple of tools. One of them is a 12-foot long strap that's made out of seatbelt material, and we show the person how to open up their rib cage volume. You can't breathe through that because it's kind of almost like your rib cage and your muscles, especially if you're a weight trainer, becomes very stiff, becomes very thick. It's like wearing a 2-inch thick wetsuit if you're a scuba diver, instead of a 1/2-inch thick. So it restricts everything. So we need to be able to change breathing from the outside, get the muscles and tendons and things out of the way, and then also strengthen the diaphragm and increase the lung volume from the inside.
Yeah, I'm curious, as people are doing, learning to breathe and breathe correctly, and as you say, there are many ways to do this, that does this also help, let's say, people are listening and they're thinking about, weight loss. I'm sure they don't talk about breathing and weight loss too much. It's usually diet and exercise. But does breathing actually help increase metabolism?
Oxygen burns fat.
Pardon me?
Oxygen burns fat.
Okay.
Not making it complicated. Oxygen burns fat. And so, plus the breathing pattern, when it becomes more stabilizing, more calming, then the person has much more control over their energy, so they have more control over what they stick in their mouth.
I can agree with you on that one. How about focus?
Okay. That's an interesting question because you have to. I mean, almost every target shooter, every basket shooter, basketball, there's a breathing component to it. And so, do you do it at the bottom of an exhale? Which I shoot baskets. I've done 10 out of 10. I'm 78 years old, and I've made 10 out of 10 baskets. you do it at the bottom of an exhale because it takes very little effort. But if you're doing something else, like if you're lifting, you're going for the weightlifting championship of the world, then you need a big deep breath, and you focus on the energy. They use the energy of the exhale to lift, and there's this, as you're exhaling. When you learn to use breathing properly, you can stay mentally focused much quicker, much better, because your breathing is not distracting you. If you get up in the wrong place, coming from the wrong place, either for relaxation or for energize, you can distract yourself. So one of my exercises is on an animation that basically focuses on a breath and then a slow exhale for 40 seconds. How can you do? Like a nice leaking out exhale for 40 seconds. Now, a lot of people can't get up to 8 seconds, let alone 40. But if over time you can get up to 40 seconds, you can bet that your focus and concentration is greatly improved.
I know the big thing, too, is how breathing actually can help a person soothe themselves and to relax, especially when it comes to feeling stressed in thoughts. It actually kind of slows them down to the point that they almost float away. If you just take a moment, breathe in and out over a situation that may be causing stress, and therefore you can actually clearly perhaps even see the answer to whatever it is you're trying to resolve.
Exactly. You basically, if you look at it from a physiological point of view, and by the way, breathing is kind of in between anatomy and physiology. It's kind of a no man's land. But if you look at this focus, concentration, and wait a minute, restate your question. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, no, it was more of an observation about if you're feeling stressed, for instance, anxiety about something, that if you just take a moment to breathe, that you'll actually calm those stressful thoughts down to the point where they just seem to pretty much die away.
That could work very well, Daniel, but there's a crossover period for that. And there's a crossover period is when it's not working anymore. It's not like it's the all to be all forever. There's a crossover period when you depended upon that too much, too long. The stress hasn't gone away. Yeah, and it just stays there, and the ability to take that deep breath gets worse and worse and worse. And the more you get stressed out, the more shallow breathing you have, the more distorted breathing you have, and the harder it gets just to let go.
Now, let's talk about, you have a breathing exercise on your website, breathing.com. We'll talk about that a little bit. And what other kind of information people can find on there to help move them in the direction toward better health and well-being?
Well, there's 1,500 pages and 20,000 hyperlinks. It's the most comprehensive free website on the internet around breathing. We sell a breathing kit, but we sell very few things on there in comparison. So the best thing one can do is to take the breathing test and to see what they learn and to see how good those 4 skills are. And then there's a multitude of answers and suggestions and things that they can do on their own and insights they can get. Once they do that, they also qualify for a free consult with me. And they schedule a 15-minute consult, and then we kind of go over, okay, what did you learn? What do you need now? So the kit is, the test is really, I spent a year with a computer scientist working on those questions. And, bowel movements are included. How much water do you drink? How's your sleep? How's your personal relationships? Yada yada yada. And I don't look at them unless I'm asked to. Because there's just, I already learned quite a bit about them. So the bottom line is showing up and taking the test. Now, that's it. Show up, take the test. Show up, take the test.
There you go, and you can discover that test on breathing.com. And you said you had another website as well?
TurboOxygen.com. That's the new one, replacing my oxygen machine.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
there's also Turbo Oxygen products inside of breathing.com, but we separated Turbo Oxygen by itself because a lot of people that might refer to us would have their own nutritional perspectives, etc., so they could just use the Turbo Oxygen instead.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the program today. There's a lot more to it than you would think than just simply breathing in and out. You can certainly discover more by visiting breathing.com, and you can also get a consult with Michael as well. Michael, I want to thank you for being on the Beyond 50 radio program today and sharing this with the listeners.
My pleasure, Daniel. Keep breathing.
Will do. That's what you do in radio.
Exactly.
We want to thank you again. Well, thank you to the listeners out there for joining us. You can discover more at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We do encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. Keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.